passive shared annoyance of this news story, and every single part of it brings nothing but consternation, understanding, pain, abstract fear, and animosity to the platform. Now, before I talk about that, I need to do this. Those of you who saw the comment section from the video yesterday know exactly why I did that. Alright. Here's the timeline of events. Sony chooses, of their volition, to get themselves involved in the game of Helldivers 2. Their decision to fuck over the game leads us to where we are currently in the final news. If you have not been paying attention, or you don't pay attention to tweets and the firestorm that was created from these tweets and those tweeting, I will break it down to you. TLDR. TLDR. Sony, after having to be dragged across the finish line and forced to do their job, now are going to do their job. By that I mean, Sony, after doing everything they could to fuck over the game, now have rescinded the boycott. Now, I show you this from my Discord on camera because it is important for you to see this in real time, okay? Because this is how the news story actually evolved. If you don't care about anything else I'm going to tell you, this is your TLDR about everything. This is the final conclusion of the story. But this is not how the story started. The way this story started with what we had to deal with here. You'll find the link for it. Not that one. It's supposed to be under Bastionator, but apparently it's not here. Apparently it's not here, which is weird. But anyways, the way this moved from, ultimately proceeded from a couple of positions. But it started with the words and comments being made by Bastionator. And from the comments and words of Bastionator, how Helldivers 2 then had the announcement made that the accounts would require mandatory linking. Ah, here it is. I don't know why this didn't show up the way it did. But all of this news story started here from the comments being made by Bastionator of Arrowhead Studios. Then we arrived at the position of, after the PSN registrations being made as they were, that the game requiring this led to, obviously, the story requiring people to reveal this information in the order in which that mattered. One, that the issue about account linking was never about players ignored information. The way that this information was communicated by the parties who communicated it, for whatever intentions and purposes they wanted. Some chose to play up, in the case of Grums, the anti-consumer narrative. It's obviously anti-consumer. This then advanced to the position of understanding that there were communications made and comments made by account managers, as well as by community managers, that gave conflicting information. Then there were people like that of Thor, Pirate Software, communicating that he did not want to have interest in the game, and on principle would be removing the game from his library, getting a refund, and doing everything he could to voice his displeasure, because this is beyond the pale, which I am in agreement. It is beyond the pale. There are people commenting that anyone talking about this were just simply whinging, whining, appealing to the triviality that this actually isn't that important. It only takes 2 minutes to make an account and link it. But the problem is that people could not be able to make accounts for Helldivers because they could not make accounts for PSN. The sheer problem of this is that the issue was a gaslighting problem. The gaslighting problem being that it was always projected before May 3rd that signing into PSN was an optional link. To put this into context, for anybody who wants to misunderstand it, take Don't Starve Together. Don't Starve Together allows you to link your account, your Clay account, your Clay ID, to your Steam, and thus through connecting it to your Steam and then connecting it to your Twitch account, you can then receive in-game skins for watching Clay Ambassadors. You do not need to have a Clay account in the way that you need to have a Steam account, in the way that you need to have a Twitch account link. In the case of this being a Clay game, and you're playing it on the internet, since this is the multiplayer port that has now been developed over years of effort to become a full-fledged standing imperative video game, you do require a Clay account for DST, but you do not need to link it to your Twitch account for the purposes of moderation. This is the way in which they projected and claimed this for Helldivers. You do not at any time, nor was it ever necessary, to make a Steam account in order for you and everyone else to be able to address the problem of Helldivers. We did not need to link our accounts in order to make it easier for you to ban people. Because the problem is that it doesn't help with player moderation, it helps with the ability to harass players. The reason why is obvious, as you could see a couple times here, but we'll go over it. Ultimately, the reason why it was added was because specifically and explicitly it was always about trying to do what one could to force the hand of players, to see how much they could actually get out of people in general. Now, as this information hit the airwaves, as you can see, I posted this in time, the Helldivers CEO tried to ameliorate the situation because of the toxicity expressed by Spitz and expressed by Misty. As you can see here, a clip of that as it came down the pipeline. Pause to read. From here, it then becomes obvious and noted that the displeasure of the player base led to two outcomes. The first, of course, being the Snake, the Act-Man, trying desperately to claim stolen valor over our training paying off because he needed to get some clout in from Heel vs. Babyface, of which I obviously mocked him. But then also, Helldivers 2 being unlisted from purchase in the countries where it could not have a PSN account made. Effectively meaning, in these countries, if you bought the game here, your game is bricked. This was something I expressed multiple times and people said I was wrong about. I'm going to now get my flowers. Ha 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 ha. Then came the piece of information that made me annoyed, which was Arrowhead CEO, as well as multiple internal people, knew about the mandatory registration 6 months before launch. The game has been live for 3.5, close to 4 months. The fact that, well, closer to actually 5 now, they knew that it was going to happen. And yet, like I just showed you, before May 3rd, it was communicated that it would be optional. Not that it was a wavered, foregone conclusion. This is what factored into a lot of people's choices and what makes this rug pull. It doesn't matter if you want to blame the devs. It doesn't matter if you want to blame PlayStation. Because by the words of the CEO themselves, they are not blameless. Because it was his decision to disable account linking so that players would play the game. He did not ensure that players were fully made aware of the requirement, and they did not talk about it. Them knowing for 6 months before launch that it would be made mandatory means that he made a decision to get people to play the game, which can be seen as a form of false advertisement. In my opinion, professional and personal, that is false advertisement, and it is a desire to get people through the door, get them to play the game, get them hooked on the game, and then latch them to the tree and see if they're willing to gnaw their arm off. This particular information is what makes this reveal bittersweet. By all means, people can say, haha, we won, but did we really? Did we really win? Were you not mocked and antagonized and harassed to your face by community managers that will not see their actions result in them getting fired? Did you not demonstrate in real time that the thing they cared about was money? Because for all of the bundles, and for all of the war bonds, and for all the gameplay, and all the extra shit, for all the shit said and done about the game is broken. The trust is broken. And we cannot get the trust back. The goodwill is already gone. This here is an attempt by PlayStation to save face and to pray that players will not rake them over the coals harder, faster, and longer than they have already taken embarrassment for. It does not matter that they have rescinded it now, because the problem is the player base is already fractured. The trust is already broken. Players have already left their negative reviews. In order for the game to be engoodened, you're going to have to do a lot. Because unfortunately, woke or not woke, doesn't matter. Baskinator still left these comments. The dev team still left these comments, and only rescinded these comments once it was impressed upon them, the Reddit moderators that they were, that this was a deeper issue than just the triviality of making a new account. Everything involved, every single factor involved, comes to player goodwill. The player base does not have that goodwill. And as I'm almost certain it can be demonstrated if I go to Steam charts. I'm looking here, and it's not good. Bros, it is not good. We are beating their ass. It's still red. Look at that. Look. Look. Look with your special eyes. I'll make it even bigger for you. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. This player base, at its peak, at its full potential and strength that it was during the F-Spam Brigade of the first major order that had broken because we completed it so fast, is 3/4 a PC player base. The peak contiguous players playing at any one time for the 4 odd months, I would say, roundabout, that it's been out, not accounting for these first few days of May. Because we're technically not even a proper 7 days into May. Today is May 6th. At the time of recording, the average player base has dropped drastically. Now granted, this is the weekend. Currently, as the time I am speaking, it is 1:38 a.m. But at its peak power, the player base is somewhere between 500,000 PC Helldivers and about 250 on peak weekends, and peak current count 250,000 console players, which is 3/4 of 1 million players. For a game that was supposed to be projected to have a player base of what they thought they would get of at least 10K concurrently. The numbers and their expectations for them overshot anything they could have planned for. This game had every single hallmark of success. Maybe if I put it into a large review, it'll make it even worse for you motherfuckers. This is on 7 day. Give me 3 months. You can't take it any longer. Look at that. Look at that downturn. Look at it. It spiritually hurts us. From January 31st to here. And then the concurrent numbers shown from February 16th. Look at that. The goodwill of Helldivers 2 is dead. We cannot get it back. It doesn't matter what anyone says. The way that this game has to be engoodened, I believe, goes far beyond what Arrowhead is currently capable of at this time. Obviously, damn, how good's you, Sony? But we're not shocked by this, because of course this is on the back of Stellar Blade news as well. I wish that it was just as simple as saying, ah ha ha ha, it's all Sony's fault, but it's not. Every single person at inside of the Helldivers audience that had a position of power and chose to not address this problem for what it was, take it seriously, and say, no, Thor, you're not being over-sensational. It actually is this bad. They're at fault. Obviously, the community managers and the employees that basically shamed people for the crime of good business practices, triply at fault. The Arrowhead CEO, and the fact that he knew that this was a problem and did not address this problem before it blew up in his face, that's a failure of his as well. It's just a disappointing situation all around, honestly. For me, it makes it more painful because, as I demonstrated there with our newly redesigned Discord, which you should consider joining so that you can be able to utilize the news in this way. The fact that I got to see this happen in real time from point to point to point to point and doing all the research to make sure I had everything the right way around makes it really disappointing. I am annoyed that this happened twice in my lifetime to 2 games that I liked. Well, onto the shelf next to PO2 you go. I want to be able to say that my opinion will change, but I feel like my opinion won't. So, in the middle of the broadcast earlier, I started the refund process for Helldivers 2 because the game was bought for me as a gift, but I don't see the reason to keep it because I don't see this audience surviving. It's just simply because I do not trust them to not do something like this again. This was not the solving of the problem. This was a state of execution. And the only reason why Sony, to say PlayStation, made their decision was because they had to be shamed in doing it. Why was this even something that they required 6 months before launch? Because you see, the other part of this data that I believe is part of this news story is the part where, back here on the news story, it was projected to be said that in order for this to even be a thing that would cause their involvement, the particular piece of information that made them think that this was necessary was from this news story here. Namely, that the new Sony patent would allow people to auto-detect in-game harassment using biometric data, such as your voice, on a microphone, to take action on harassment without users needing to file a report. This, of course, being the kind of AI hellscape that already exists inside of systems such as Riot's Vanguard, because the amount of rootkit access that they have to your data, including the obvious elephant in the room, that Sony is probably one of the biggest companies that have the inability to address the problem of this leaked data, made everyone believe and understand, I see. You guys rug pulled us, and now you want us to make your game even more popular for you. I see. You saw how much money you were making. You saw the goodwill, and you said, let's fuck that. We gotta control it. I see. And it's for those reasons that I report the story as I am right now. Truly, we all decided to join the recruit of the ReviewBombers2. We became a part of an elite peacekeeping force. We get to see exotic places like the bottom of the Steam charts. We do it because we have to, etc. I wish that it were better. I wish that didn't come to this. But at the end of the day, Sony would rather run a game into the ground than leave the developers the fuck alone. Same as it ever was.